This series is sponsored by the USAA Foundation. We would like to thank the USAA Foundation for their generosity in making this content possible.
So folks are trickling in. Victor and Roxana, thank you so much for getting up at this early morning to come hang out with us. We're going to allow participants to keep rolling in for a moment before we get this show on the road. So thank you once again for being a part of Conversations with Caregivers and their families. So just for a moment, I'm looking at the numbers of participants that are trickling in. I'm thinking we can go ahead and get started. How do y'all feel about that?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Caregivers and Families. I am so thrilled to be here with you today. I am your host, Qwynn Galloway-Salazar. And just a little bit about myself, I'm an Army veteran. I'm a spouse to a combat Army veteran. I'm a caregiver, and I am the creative advisor for PsychArmor. So let's dive into our conversation today. Here's what I know for sure. Behind every great initiative, there's one key vital ingredient, and that is everyone that's on this platform with us today. The people who connect with us, that connect with this work, if you're a caregiver, if you're a family member, if you're a loved one, you are the key ingredient. And we're so thrilled to be able to provide programming and initiatives like Conversations with Caregivers and Families. But with that, it's also important to make mention that initiatives like this are funded by generous donations from organizations. And for this specific initiative, the organization that funds this program is the USAA Foundation. Huge kudos to the USAA Foundation for keeping this programming alive and thriving. At the heart of our collective mission is a deep desire to understand and to connect with amazing individuals that your lives touch this work. So with that being said, we would love to offer you all an opportunity to be a part of an anonymous demographic survey. In a moment, you will see a survey pop up on your screen. We will so be pleased if you would be willing to just answer these quick polling questions so we can go ahead and get started. As the survey questions are being responded to, I cannot stress enough that being a part of initiatives like this is changing the landscape. It's changing the game in the way that we are able to provide culturally sensitive, culturally sound, ensuring that we are looking at diversity, inclusion, accessibility, topics at hand. So we want to ensure that we're always at the cutting edge and be the way that we are, one, choosing the guests that come on our show. Two, we're hitting on the topics and the content that you readily want to see that may be impactors in your life. So thank you once again for taking the time and filling out this demographic questionnaire. Right, with that said, if this is your first time joining Conversations with Caregivers and their families, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are returning back, welcome back. Please know the chat option is open and it is available for you all to introduce yourself. If there's anything that you want to share, where you're calling from, a little bit about you and your family. If you want to share throughout any tips or techniques or strategies that you want to add on to as we're talking about communication, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Questions, drop them in the chat as well. Every episode provides us with the opportunity to virtually engage and learn with fellow military and veteran caregivers and families about difficult issues that affect our lives. Through these engagements, we can learn together, discover new resources, transform the narratives of our experiences, and build resiliency. Today, we are going to touch and tackle a topic that many of us often struggle with, and that is effective communication. I'd like to think that this conversation today is more so like we're sitting around a kitchen table and we're having a masterclass with two living experts about their living and their mastery of effective communication. It's also important to note that this event is being recorded and it will live on the PsychArmor website and also on the PsychArmor YouTube channel. This is our first episode of the year, so once again, thank you for joining us. Our hope is that this conversation will empower you and equip you with new tools, new strategies to navigate your communication journey successfully. With us today, we have Roxana Delgado and Victor Medina. Welcome. Two of my favorite people on the face of this planet, and I promise at the end of this conversation, I am sure they will be yours as well. But I want to afford the both of them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So Victor and Roxana, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. Victor, no pressure. She just called us the master of communication. So let's see.
Yeah, right. Let's see.
Do you want to introduce yourself first, Victor?
Well, let it first. So.
Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Roxana Delgado, and I am Victor's wife, but I also happen to be a professor at UT Health San Antonio, the director of the Caring for the Caregiver program, and the co-founder with Victor of TBI Warrior Foundation. You're going to learn a little bit more about ourselves, but at some point in time, I have to step in as a caregiver in the caregiver role as a full-time for Victor. And here we are today, really sharing our lived experience. We are in no way perfect, but we are definitely here to share a little bit more about us and what we do and how we can make it better for those coming behind. So welcome, and we're very excited to be here with you.
Well, thank you, Qwynn and PsychArmor. Well, I'm Victor Medina. I'm an Army vet. I served 18 and a half years in the Army, and I'm a rehab counselor. That's what I currently serve our community, there's a lot of pressure here about communication. Being an expert, I don't know. We're about to find out. But I will share with everyone the way I communicate with Roxana. I don't think we have a formula, but we have made it work for 24 years. And 24 years married, and then at 4 years dating, that's 28, and she's still hanging around. So I guess I got to be doing something right. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, Roxana, I know that there's a special piece that you all wanted to share with our audience. Do you want to give us a brief synopsis of what we're getting ready to see?
Sure. So we're going to go ahead and watch the video that really depicts our life. It's only 3 minutes. So can you imagine ARP put our experience in a 3-minute video. The video that you're going to see may have some parts that may be distressful for some of you. It was very well done, but we want to make sure that you know that the video actually depicts the moment that Victor was wounded. That's the real video from June 29th, 2009. And we want to make sure that we're sensitive to that. So we're going to play the video whenever we're ready. It's a 3-minute, and you're going to see our life.
The day before my husband was injured, I just had this sixth sense that something was wrong. The uneasiness kept growing.
Every time they leave the wire, it always poses a risk. That day, they had to detour. They had to go through alleys and through towns, and Out of the sudden, they were in this stretch in the desert. That's when they got hit.
That day, they all me that died. And I knew me was born.
The person who came back was not the husband I sent out.
It's referred for, I think, visible wound. Like in my case, you can say it, but I feel it every day. Roxana is always raised the bar on me.
How are you feeling about this?
Not so good.
In my early stages of rehab, I remember trying to get by with a bare minimum.
I just loved him, but I also challenged him a lot.
I couldn't tie my shoes, but Roxana would make me.
We would sit on the couch and I would play a movie. I would give him a shoe and I would have the other shoe and we tie shoes together.
Hold on.
He did it again and again until he was able to do it.
I got tired of her pushing me to the next level. And I remember me telling her, "You're the worst caregiver ever."
I didn't care at the time if he was unable to do it. I just looked at the possibilities. I mean, he was a soldier, a warrior, a fighter, and he always had that in him.
There's always hope. So surrender is never an option. Well, I'm not gonna surrender. When I live my last breath, then I'll surrender, but not in life.
Now Victor is completely independent.
We created the TBI Warrior Foundation to improve the quality of life of those with traumatic brain injuries. We want to ensure that others coming behind know that there's resources and that there's hope.
Now I can serve in the military, but I do live a life of service which follows the traditional service in the military where you are second to all.
You know, I have had the opportunity to see that video so many times, and every single time I watch it, the level of emotion that stirs for me is so great. And I thank you all for being willing to share a piece of your life and sharing it now with this audience. I cannot thank you all enough.
Thank you so much, Qwynn. I have to admit, I had to go off camera just for a second. I think that you all noticed, because it doesn't matter if this happened 14 years ago. It doesn't matter that I have seen this video so many times. You're right. It's like we review our own life and we have been so blessed, so fortunate to be where we're at today. So thank you so much for the opportunity for us to not only be here, but share a little bit more, a piece of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, I want to say November, December time frame, PsychArmor launched a course called Choosing Your Words. And that course had such an impact in my life at that time because I was serving as a caregiver to my husband, who was a retired combat veteran. And probably similar to you and Victor at the early stages of caregiving, there's this feeling of the veteran wanting their independence, wanting to be able to do all the things that they were accustomed to doing. And as caregivers and as family members, we now have to learn this new way of showing up, of being, of caretaking, but also offering moments, significant moments of independence. I always think about that moment when you were talking about tying your shoes, Victor, and relearning how to tie your shoes, and Roxana came alongside of you for you both to tie shoes together. It's similar in nature to me having to walk beside my husband as he learned how to walk again. So when we think about choosing our words, and this is for both of you, and I think this is one of the reasons in which I think this episode is so fruitful, is we're hearing the story of the caregiver, but we're also hearing Victor's story as the veteran and what he was feeling like, his journey, Roxana's journey as caregiver to where she is today. So I want to start I want to throw a few questions out. I want there'll be questions, but I really want it to be conversational in this space. Be as vulnerable, as raw, as transparent as you both feel that you possibly can be and are comfortable to be. And at the same time, for those that are tuning in, I want you all to feel the same space. Right? This is a safe space, and please feel free to share once again in the chat. So Victor and Roxana, thinking back over, 24 years of marriage, I think, Victor, you said, and then 4 years being together. Can you share a specific instance where effective communication truly made a difference in your caregiving journey?
Victor?
Yeah, you want to start?
No, go ahead. Maybe you
Well,
remember something I don't.
I would say, I cannot think of a specific moment, but I can remember a period of time where there was a lot of emotions I had a lot of emotions, that anger, and I was not the happiest of campers out there, and that actually showed in our relationship, and understandably so. Like it was like I was a full-time rehab. I was always high performer in the army. So and then I was facing, I could not do. Without help, I couldn't do what I used to do, the simple things of life. And with that anger, it transferred over to our it transferred to every relationship around me, not only in the marriage. But there was a time where I had to step back. You know, when it comes to disability, there's an area called the psychological impact of disability, and I think that's the biggest barrier to overcome when it is to accept what one's disability, and then so I got to that point where I just accepted what it was, and in that moment of acceptance, I remember I thought, you know, and this happened over a few years. It was not a short period, but then I stopped and I thought, you know, Roxana had the choice to pack up and leave, but she chose to stay beside me. And when I saw it that through that lens, I became so grateful that she stood by me, and it reshaped, it reframed the way I was engaging with her from that moment. And yeah, that's where I can take it back to. This is where effective communication started, because our communication was disrupted for a few years.
I would say also, so one of the things that sometimes we see with people who, like Victor mentioned, have any kind of injuries, disabilities, illnesses, is that they hear so much negative when they go to medical appointments. And I can distinctively remember one time that Victor and I went to a medical appointment, and that day was like, everything was about what Victor was not going to be able to do for the rest of his life. And Victor, you have these impairments and you won't be able to do this, and you may not be able to do these other things. So it was all so negative. So that we left that appointment with a sense of sorrow and feeling like, no, not all is lost. And I remember telling Victor when we got home, he was quiet, going back home, and he just didn't want to engage too much, you know. And if you know veterans, when they don't want to engage, just don't force it. So we got home, we had some coffee, and then I said, Victor, let's do something. These are all the things that you may not be able to do. Let's now make a list of all the things that you will be able to do, because you are a warrior and you are very determined and you have all the resources available to be able to do certain things. So we sat down and he was very frustrated. But I think that when we talk about communication, it's not just that verbal communication, it's that motivation, is the behavior that we put behind the words that we say. Are we truly believing what we're saying? Our facial expression. I remember I never looked at Victor with pity, like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. No, I was always like, okay, what are we gonna do about this? And at some point in time, he didn't like that. He didn't appreciate that. But I feel like it was the conduit to allowing him to see himself through my eyes, because what I could see was a lot of potential. I could see a great future. At that time, it may have been just, we were just full of hope. So when we think about communication in that moment, I feel that was pivotal, because right after that, the week after, is when he started the blogging with his therapist. This is like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So it was a long time ago, but it was pivotal in our life. And he engaged a bit more with the providers that he had at that moment. And that's where he started blogging about his life.
Wow. And it's interesting as you all share that, and I thinking about the motivation and the tone and the body language and the challenging Victor to do the next thing, right? Victor, one of the moments for me in the video is when you said, she's the worst caregiver ever. And how many veterans feel that when they're being stretched, right? Yeah. That caregiver is the worst caregiver ever. And how that leads into arguments and how that leads into disagreements and hurt feelings. What happens the next day, right?
Well, actually, I can tell you what happened the next minute after he said that.
Let's do it.
I remember vividly. So he turned at me and he hurt me because I was like, oh, I'm a worst caregiver ever. Come on, I've been here since day one. I am doing everything. I am helping you. I'm motivating you anyway. But this is what happened. He turned to me. He said, you know what? You're the worst caregiver ever. And I looked at him and I said, I may be, but let me tell you something. I'll be here in front of you, beside you, and behind you for the rest of our life. So because I'm forcing you to do something, or I can see where you can be. If that makes me the worst caregiver ever, you will thank me later on. So be it. But I promised that day, I reassured him that day that I was here to stay, even when he didn't like maybe the approach that I was using. And of course, I want to make a disclaimer, because remember, we all know our loved one better than anybody else. So not because it's a recipe means that it's a recipe for everyone else. But this is what worked for us, because I knew Victor very well, and I knew how much I could press on, and I knew how much he could give. I knew his heart, I knew his abilities, and I knew his drive. So that's exactly why I did what I did. But again, everyone is so different. So the number one key is knowing your loved one better than anybody else, and making sure that you're tapping into those very positive behaviors and positive aptitudes that veteran has, to be able to get the best of them.
Yeah. And it's not linear. And Victor, can you talk to me about that, right? Like, I think sometimes we envision that the journey is going to be a linear one, a straight path. And I don't think that it always is.
Well, it's not. I go back to when I used to tell her she was, and there was not one time I said it I do remember I said it many times. And now I still to the day sometimes, because even though I'm highly functional, like I run a non-profit, so some days I tell you don't understand everybody to be able, you don't understand mine, right? But it is not a linear process, but and at the same time, it is not a one-sided process. Like there has to be it's a transactional. Every relationship is transactional. So with Roxana and I back then, like it was very challenging. Like I tell you, I was so frustrated back then. I could see some hope, but I felt hopeless at times. That transfer so many times I had on my mind, or I am going to be better today. I'm going to be more loving today. And many days I failed at it. So we all, like in the military, like in every mission, we have a plan, and then we start a mission. Sometimes the plan does not go as it was done, but things got better over time, and I chose to live up to our vows when we got married, but there's rules to this, and this is something I believed then, and I believe now. One is I really respect Roxana, so I never offend her. And in our house, we do not curse. Like I don't curse in the house or outside that house. It's just not in me. We don't call each other's names or anything like that. So it's having that respect. Then second is I believe to have a happy marriage. One of my own personal rules is never do anything that will dishonor my wife. Mm-hmm. So that anything it can be anything. So I never put myself in a position that Roxana will have to answer for me, or that Roxana will have to lower her gaze because she'll be embarrassed because I did something. I think having those rules, those very personal rules, is what can avoid a lot of conflict in the marriage. Because we have, and not think based on those rules at home, like any couple, we argue every now and then. But we never mentioned in the argument, and this is a rule Roxana and I have since day one. We never ever threaten each other with the divorce.
The D word is completely out of our mouth. Okay. Victor and I made that decision early on when we first got married, and so like Victor is saying, there's certain things and certain rules that it has helped us to be successful in how we communicate with each other. I don't know, Victor, if you're gonna get into this rule, but we don't pass a whole night without at least saying, something nice before going to bed. Even if we're, upset and maybe we didn't resolve the issue, but still, even if we didn't resolve the issue, we still look at each other. It's like, good night, hope you sleep well. And there's those rules that really helped us to overcome any kind of disagreements or anything. One thing, and sorry, Victor, I cut you off. I just noticed that I'm just like at home, right?
You're passionate. You're passionate. Let's do it.
So one of the things is that at the beginning with the new injury, of course, Victor was medically evacuated. There's a lot of medical appointments. At some point in time, we were dealing with 28 different specialties. So life is convoluted, right? Life is difficult. And there were many challenges. But what I'm so appreciative is that quickly we were able, and quickly meaning like a couple years, we were able to really turn all that around and said, okay, we want to make meaning out of this. In 2 years, we were already, Victor was blogging. His blog was already impacting lives that were broken at that moment. I started blogging as well. We both started coming together and saying how can we use this for the greater good? It would be a disservice if we take our lived experience and put it in a drawer or put it in a box and forget about it. We really wanted to share our experience, and we noticed that a lot of people were contacting us and saying, wow, this is me, that's me. And that really reinforced our motivation to really look for ways that was our genuine and recipe to succeed. So I could, this is 14 years ago. And today we have seen a lot of the great fruit of our labor in that sense, and the beauty of having resources. One of the things that, that Victor and I do very much is that we're very intentional in setting aside time for us to talk. And Victor will tell you this, but of course, I'm the extrovert in the relationship, so I can talk at any time. If I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I'll be a talker at that time, and Victor is not a talker at that time. So, we have different strategies, but knowing your loved one again better than anybody else, and knowing those cues will get you a long way.
So thinking
she is a talker.
She's a talker.
I'm like, some days I gotta go like, I need you down here, not up there. Because I'm like she said, I'm mostly an introvert. I can be an extrovert, but when I'm an extrovert, it's so my choosing. Well, I'm mostly introverted, so conversations early in the morning, they just drain me. And Roxana is always bubbly. Like when you see her smiling right now, that's her face all day long. Like she's always smiling. And I have tried that, and it hurts. So
I love that opposites attract.
So, but one thing is with Roxana is she was always very kind to me. Like she was always very loving, very kind, and I never felt unloved during that time, and well, and during any time, she's always been so loving. She's a wife. Like I would say she's more than I ever deserved her, and I'm very grateful for that.
Don't say that because you're gonna make me cry.
and you know
what?
what?
Me that. Yeah.
In this space, I want that to be okay, right? Like I want our audience and our guests to feel like, I think in many aspects of this conversation, they know the both of you for the stellar work that you all do nationally. But I think having a seat at our virtual kitchen table, they're getting an insight into your life where there's an intersection of empathy that keeps showing up in this conversation, right? It's clear that there's empathy, and it wasn't a matter of sympathy that you all, were able to navigate through. And I think empathy plays such a major role in how we communicate, especially in difficult moments as recovery and being a caregiver, and just how you do life together, right? How do you both, right? Like listening to both of you, and opposites attract. We have an introvert and we have an extrovert. We have someone who wakes up in the morning that's like, don't talk to me right now. And we have another that's like, here are all of the things with a smile on her face. How do you incorporate empathy into your conversations? Especially when emotions can be running high, right? We're human, and emotions some days get the best of us. What do you all do when the other is emotionally charged?
I can tell you, Roxana's very empathic. I am. I'm not that empathic. I'm more because I'm just put out there. I'm a problem solver. So with that usually empathy takes us, the back seat. We only see the problem that needs to be solved. But Roxana, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually can share a little bit of it's an anecdote, and you take it if you want. For those of you who so and I'm not stereotyping, but veterans tend to have their grumpy days. So let's say Victor, for the most part in the morning, he's not a talker, but he's really mellow. He's very sweet. He actually brews the coffee in the morning, and whenever it's espresso, he's like, honey, single or double shot. And that's the first moment in the morning that it's like, oh, I just love him. But there's certain days that he's just quiet. And I could tell, that that's probably the morning he doesn't want to engage in conversation or anything. But whenever he has a day that is considered for him a bad day, he really doesn't want me to even say good morning, because I say good morning every morning. He grabs his favorite cup, the grumpy cup, the favorite cup for that day. So he has this cup from the Seven Dwarfs. It has a grumpy in the front. And whenever he doesn't want to engage in any conversation at all, he would just drink coffee out of that mug. So when I see him drinking coffee out of that cup, I know right away that it's not his day. It's not that day that he really want to engage or even say anything, at all. So we have our cues. We do have strategies. We talk about it. That's not something that can happen out of the blue. We talk about it. We strategize with each other. One thing that I love is one time that Victor said, you know what, my goal in life is making you happy. And I was thinking about that, and I said, okay, but if your goal is to make me happy, then you're depleting yourself just from giving, right? So then I responded, then my goal is gonna make you happy. And then immediately we started laughing and we started talking about it. And the reality is that if your goal is to make the other person feel valued and happy and loved, then you're both getting something out of the other one, and it's not a one-way street, right? Or a one-way emotional discharge. So we talk about everything. Another anecdote that I want to share, because it sounds like, oh, so beautiful today, because of course we're 14 years later, but there was a period of time when Victor cognitively, he was when he first came back, he was medevac. He scored around 4th, 5th grade. So with that, of course, behavior was also on that same age range. He behaved differently in public, things that could have made me feel embarrassed, because he was almost like a child. And we're very open about this topic, because at some point in time, I really had to switch my perspective from being a wife to be his best friend. And I didn't say anything. I just was very, like Victor said, I was always very kind. We were always very good friends. But I probably did things or looked in a way that wasn't like wife-husband, relationship. And one day, that's what it was in the video, that he looked at me. He's like, wow, I don't feel like you're looking at me or you're treating me as a husband. You're treating me more like a good partner, right? Like a best friend. And I actually was very communicative about it. We sat down and I said, Victor, the reality is that, and kind of like specify a little bit about his shortcomings in terms of, not shortcomings, but, he at that moment, the state that he was living. And I said, you know what, I just want to be your best friend right now. And it's a win-win for both of us, because my expectations of you won't be anything else or more than being my best friend. And that's how we started redefining, right? At least in my like plan, I had it all planned, right? How I was going to redefine. And then he looked at me and said, oh, no. I'm going to make you fall in love with me again. I am not going to be your best friend. I want to be your husband. And that was a motivator in his case to start engaging in certain different activities. The good thing is that communication is not just between the couple, but he went back to therapy. He was in full-time therapy at that time with occupational therapists, physical, and also speech language. And he spoke with all of the therapists and told them about what was happening. And he said, I really need to really engaged with all these therapy. I'm sorry, something fell in my office. And he said, I want to definitely be better, develop this part of me, and he engaged even more. So all that to say that what made me fall in love with him again wasn't so much that he advanced like in a year, all these years. No, it was seeing him work so hard to gain my heart again. And that actually was what made me fall in love with him again, even though at that time he wasn't completely or he wasn't in that, like right now he's a very highly functional. So again, that communication is so important, even if at times it hurts a little bit, or even if at times it's such a difficult discussion. So, but having it, many times we look back and we say, if we would have never had this conversation, where would we would be, right? We probably wouldn't be where we're at today. So again, that's what works for us. That was our recipe.
That is so awesome. So Victor, so we have this grumpy dwarf mug, right?
Yes.
And we moved to something that you said to me recently that was so profound, was I walk the walk. And we had a question that came in from one of the audience members, and I'm going to read the question out. The question says, I work with veterans who are very resistant to ask for help. How can I effectively encourage veterans to express what they need? Any tips on building rapport and creating a safe space?
Well, it's right. That's a great question, because veterans typically they are resistant to asking for help. It is, and this is not. Now I'm switching from a professional perspective. We do serve at the TBI Water Foundation. We do serve veterans. They're more, even though we serve the community at large, big chunk of the people we serve are vets. So one thing I found is to engage the vet, to ask for help. It's very effective to engage the family. Usually, like we run groups for vets and caregivers, and to get the veteran to come out, many times we have to reach out to the spouse, and then the spouse comes, and then the veteran comes all grumpy, like what am I doing here? But then at the end of the group, they're like, I'm glad I came. To establish rapport, in my case, because I'm a vet, I disclose that up front. So for me, when I'm serving vets, that helps. It's easier to establish rapport. In the case of a non-vet serving a vet, I know we should, like as a counselor, we should not disclose. We're discouraged to disclose too much, but just opening the conversation or including your conversation. I will never understand what you went through, but I'm here to help, to support you in any way I can, and that may bring the barrier down. To open the conversation. And this is one thing one of my rules at home, and when I'm engaging with other vets, is I don't expect Roxana, for example, to understand what I went through. She will never understand it. And I'm talking like, yeah, all right, I got her down range, but I would say any vet that has deployed, I think deployment, just the act of deployment changes a person. Military training changes a person. It is meant for that, to change your mind, and whatnot. So even when I'm with other vets, I don't expect them to understand me, and I do tell them, I will never understand what you went through. I can hear you. I can listen to you, but don't expect me on understanding. Even like when I got hurt in the same mission, my gunner got hurt, and it had different effects on both of us, and we can understand the event when that happened, but I cannot understand what he went through. Like his upbringing is different, his education is different, so there's a lot of factors that plays a role in how a person sees the world. Just taking those factors into consideration may help, establish better rapport, better therapeutic relationship, and in some cases, I've seen this. People serving vets that are not vets, they just bring a veteran and a veteran that serves the veteran community into the mix. To establish that rapport. So I hope that helps.
No, that's super helpful. And I'm grateful that we have providers that have joined this conversation as well. Oftentimes I get that question also, and how do you create a safe space for a veteran to show up and to be able to build that level of trust and build that rapport? And, there are moments when I'm working with providers and I tell providers, for a moment, put your clipboard down and meet that veteran right where they are in that moment. Building that relationship, that one-on-one relationship where the thought that they'll be judged is brought down some, right? Meet them where they are. We're so quick to want to create plans and how do we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
Very first thing that I tell people all the time is build that genuine connection.
I love that you're saying that, because in my case, being a spouse, I always tell Victor's friends that are veterans, I don't consider myself, of course, I'm the spouse of the veteran, but sometimes people tend to think that equates to being a veteran, and it's not. Like Victor said, I would never understand what they have gone through, what they've been through. But I always place myself in that position of, I am here for you, and I'm here genuinely with a heart that is ready, right, to give. And it's beautiful when they love coming to our home, or they, we like sharing together. I never ask questions. Like, asking questions may not be the best way of engaging with the veteran, but I just, just give them everything good that I have for me, so they feel comfortable and non-judge in that sense. One more thing I wanted to add to what Victor said, which of course that's for me the golden rule, and don't want to. But the reality is that when we think about veterans, we also have to be very cognizant of the era. So, each veteran will have their own cultural patterns and beliefs. So veterans from the World War II, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Korea, all these different wars may have their own way of communicating. So let's not force who they are and how they feel comfortable communicating. And each one of them will come to someone. So let's just make sure that each one of us can be that someone to one of those veterans. So.
Wow. That gave me chills. And here's why that gave me chills. I think we have, for the past 20 plus years, we have been so highly focused on our current war era, our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, that there are moments where we're not thinking of World War II and Korea and Vietnam and Gulf Storm. And so that's really critical, right? As we're having these conversations, and this is like a tweet moment, so to speak, where if you know an older couple, right, or a family member, consider their generation too, right? Consider their generation and how communication was different for them. and work alongside them, come alongside them, and share some of these tips and share some of these strategies. I'm not saying they all will work for, you know, a family member, for a caregiver and a veteran that served in Vietnam, but definitely acknowledging and knowing that there are significant differences with the eras is that's like such a cool takeaway from this conversation. So
And
Roxanne,
I would like to add to that, Qwynn,
yes,
is our generation of veterans, we need to be grateful because a lot of the benefits that we enjoy today were fought by the previous generation. And I look at, like, this morning, I had a meeting with some veterans, and there was, I want to say, 11 Vietnam vets and 2 OIF vets. And it's great to work together. I don't know, because of their generation, they're not the most techie people. So we come and we bring that part that they're lacking, and as a team, we work great. You know, and I learn from them, and I admire them, because many of them were successful in life. They came back from Vietnam, established their own business or whatever, and they retired, and they were successful in life. So they have my admiration, 100%.
absolutely. You know, it's in my volunteer time, Sunday, actually, this coming Sunday, there's a group. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there is a VSO, a local VSO, who has put together a cadre of veterans that support caregivers. And predominantly they're Vietnam veterans, and they're supporting these caregivers that their veterans are facing the end of their lives. And it's to see that work happen, right, where we're able to say, one, this is our way to continue our service. This is the way that we support our caregivers, because if you're looking at many of them, and some of them served in Vietnam, so you have Agent Orange impacts, some of them have Parkinson's disease. These are illnesses that they've had for decades. And so now they're having their fellow brothers and sisters come alongside them and serve them through the end of their lives, and come alongside their caregivers and serve them as they're navigating this degree of anticipatory grief, this degree of this next phase of their caregiver to survivor journey. So it's amazing to hear, you know, and we can have a whole nother conversation about the eras and how caregiving has impacted each era, and just the longevity of caregiving. And really, truly, we do to some degree have a caregiving crisis going on in our country. And it's important that we have these conversations, not just amongst us in the military and veteran community, but as a larger society, because it's a major challenge. And I know we're winding up the time. This hour went by so
I know it went by too fast. I feel like we need you know, there's so much more to say. But one thing that I really want to say that I don't want to leave it out is that Victor at the beginning said, I chose to stay with him. And that's very true. In the sense that I love him. You know, at the first time, you don't consider yourself like any other options, right? But as time goes by, the reason why I continue to be here, even though I promised that to him, is that other piece that he shared. He's been always very respectful, very respectful. He gives from himself. I never, like, one of his rules, that he doesn't do anything that I have to look down or be embarrassed. He has been an incredible husband in that sense, and loving. And I'll share one more anecdote, just in case anybody's in the room that is a coffee lover, and that your spouse is a coffee lover or someone that you love. Sometimes I go to work and he puts the coffee already in my cup holder in the car. So those are the, you may want to think they're small gestures, but those are small gestures that impacts greatly our hearts. So it's not always a hug, or it's not always, a kiss, because we know that with the veteran community, sometimes that even doesn't exist in many couples. We have seen that. But it's the gestures. It's letting the other person know, I know what you like and I want to make you happy and I want you to. And if you both do it for each other, you will have a great recipe for success. Before we go later, I want to say something about what is happening this weekend, and that I hope that some of the couples, can I say now or later?
Yeah, say it.
Okay, so we do know that this weekend is the Operation Heal Our Patriots marriage retreat weekend. And we have some friends that contacted us and say, hey, before we go on our flight, we're going to be watching. So we want to wish you an amazing trip. If you don't know about OHOPE, PsychArmor is going to post some of those resources so you can go and see it. But anyway, we just wanted to say thank you for being here and for listening to us, and getting ready for this beautiful, amazing weekend for veterans and their caregivers and family members.
Yes, safe travels.
And I would like to add something, is for marriage to stay together, for family to stay together. Everybody, every member has to have active participation. So it is unfair to put the responsibility of the household on one person. And even like that, we have some in the community that have severe disabilities, but even the smallest things that you can help with the household will make a difference. Like at home, we have shared responsibilities. I call it that. I do really enjoy. Like I do the laundry. Roxana does the cooking. So like we have that balance in the household, and we just show up every day, and we don't know it's a co-op. It's not a Roxana, you're the wife, take care of everything. No, like I have my own chores in the house, and then we will keep them we stay together and keep them machine moving, right? So and just never be unfair to your significant other. So.
Can I just say one more thing? I know that we have like
one more thing.
Okay, so Victor, you're gonna agree with me because we do this every morning. What do we do every morning before we go on our ways?
We pray together. We hold hands and we pray together. I pray for Roxana, and she prays for over me. Spirituality it has been key in our life, like in all our lives since the beginning. So that's one thing we don't forget. We always take a step back and and recognize, because praying humbles the heart. So that's just what we do.
So to everyone that's joined us today, of course, it's the month of February. Love Day was last week. So we were extremely intentional with bringing this amazing couple onto today's episode of Conversations with Caregivers and Families. But there are so many tidbits that they have provided that you don't have to be a married couple to receive the goodness from this conversation. Whether you're a parent or a loved one or a sibling, there was something in this conversation. My hope is that there was something in this conversation for you. I said the word hope, and in the clip of Victor and Roxana's life, Victor talks about hope and being hopeless. I want to leave you all with an acronym to sum up this conversation about hope. Hope is hearing other people's experiences and knowing you are not alone in your caregiver journey. I hope you all leave this conversation filled with empathy, inspiration, motivation, whatever is needed to take the next step. I can't say take it day by day. Sometimes it's just the next step. Just do the next thing. With that, Roxana and Victor, thank you. Thank you so much
Thank you for having us.
us today. For our audience, before you leave, we want to get your feedback and know how this session, how this first episode of the year was for you. You're going to see another QR code pop up. If you can, please fill that question, that survey out, or you're going to see it pop up in the chat, QR code or chat. You'll see it. If you can share your insights, feedback, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And we hope to see you all back with us in the next few months. Stay out on the lookout. There will be a tip tool that's going to come out. The recording will come out. We'll be sure to send something to your email accounts. Thank you all once again for joining us, Roxana and Victor, friends. Thank you so much for being
Okay, thank you.
and the light that you are. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you all so much
thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a blessed day.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about this important topic and about our nation's military, veterans, and their family members. If you have any questions about this content or need assistance, please visit the PsychArmor website or call the PsychArmor support line at 844-779-2427.